It's rather interesting. Well, let that represent the mind. And you'll find. Now let's put a body on it and bring it down here where we can work on it. Now you look at this. The top half would be the conscious mind, and the bottom half would be the subconscious mind. And then that small circle at the bottom will represent the body, and the body moves into action and produces the results that we get in our life. Now, that's sort of the way it works. Now, we're sitting there getting these results, but we've got this dream. If I could only do this. And we've all got a dream. And you know what we're trying to do? We're trying to get there by fighting existing reality. You see, what got you there isn't going to get you there. There's a big gap in between here. You got to figure out how to close the gap. See, there's a paradigm that's controlling your behavior, and the paradigm's got you locked into the results you're getting. Now look at it this way for a moment. Let on these lines that you're going to see come up there represent frequencies. You and I think on frequencies. We think on frequencies. I got a phone here that operates on frequencies. See? And I can take your picture and hit send. Woo! Like that. That picture's omnipresent. It's evenly present and 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. Now, where's your thought? Thought waves are cosmic waves that penetrate all time and space. But you think on frequencies. You're never going to get to your dream on the frequency that you're working on. You've got to change the frequency. And you see, what you've got here isn't going to take you there. It just isn't going to do it. The thoughts that are giving you this result is never going to take you to that star. And we think, if I work hard. No, work hard. Go ahead, work hard. Work hard day and night. It still isn't going to cut it. It will not cut it. You're on the wrong frequency. If you let this bottom line represent an AM frequency and that represent an FM frequency. Do you know, in the area of consciousness, an AM radio station would not even be aware of the existence of an FM band. It's too far above. You got to raise your consciousness. And as you raise your consciousness, you don't have to ask what people are like. You're going to know what they're like. They've talked about your intuitive factor. You've got an intuitive factor. I could read your energy like a book. If I walk by you, I know exactly what you're like. You hide nothing. Everything goes on the inside, shows on the outside. What did James Allen say? We think in secret. Yet it comes to pass, environment is but our looking glass. They don't have to wonder what's going on in a person's mind. Look at their life. Look at their results. You see, what we've really got here is a mind game. And you know something? You've got to understand the mind. We do a program a couple of times a year. It's called Matrix. Don't have a big group. We have a small group. They come in from all over the world. We do it in Toronto. Just 5 straight days. We dig into it in depth. Well, here, the last Matrix, a man named Abdullah, he's a psychiatrist in Saudi Arabia. He said I taught him more about the mind over the past 16 weeks. He had been studying stuff prior to coming than he had learned in 16 years. He's a psychiatrist in Saudi Arabia. He had been in practice 16 years. Dr. John Mike over in Florida, who owns a Montessori school over there, he said I taught him more about the mind in 1 year than he'd learned in 4 years of medical school, 5 years of psychiatric training. I was rather shocked at that because I just taught him what a good doctor taught me. You see, I want to know why this works. I made it work. I want to know why. I'm never going to finish this in 10 minutes, but I will do my best. All right. Okay. Now. Okay. Well, I will try and speed it up a little bit, but look at. Let's look at the mind and look at paradigms. In fact, let's look at your mind and your paradigm. Now, back in 1934, that's the year I was born. Most people think because everybody dead that was born then, not me. All right. Dr. Truman Fleet was very involved in the healing arts and holistic health. And he said that nobody's ever seen the mind. Mind is an activity, it's not a thing. And that was one of the primary reasons why we have so many problems in the medical field. Because he said, we're treating symptoms, we're not treating the cause of problems at all. We're just treating symptoms. We're treating the effects of problems. We're not treating the problem. You've got to go inside if you're going to treat. So he said, what we need is an image of the mind. And he said, since nobody's ever seen one, I'm going to make one. And he said, let that be the image of the mind. Then he broke it into two parts. And he said, there's the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and, of course, the body. Now, without question, this is the most valuable idea I have ever learned in the last 52 years. I had studied all of Napoleon Hill's stuff and Carnegie's stuff. I've got ring binders of it at home, and I study it every day. I read that book every day. Every day I read Think and Grow Rich. Every day. And I don't read it in any particular place. I just open it and read it. All right? And I will never stop, and for very good reason. I was working at Nightingale Conant, and the people that were working with me knew that I was trying to figure out why I changed, and I couldn't get the answer. And they said, there's a guy giving a seminar in Vancouver this weekend. You should go to it. So I jumped on a plane. I flew out to Vancouver. And this great big man got up to speak. And the second he opened his mouth, I knew that he knew what he was talking about. And I made up my mind I was going to get to know him. When the seminar was over, I went up and I said, I'd like to spend a couple hours with you. He looked at his watch. And he said, well, I'd probably like to spend a couple hours with you too. But he said, I've got to catch a plane. And I said, I don't mean right now. I got to catch a plane too. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home. He said, where do you live? And I said, Chicago. He said, what are you doing out here? I said, I come out to hear you speak. Now, I think he was impressed that I had traveled so far. And I told him, I said, I'd have walked out here if I had known what I was going to get. And so the two of us met in the Skyline Hotel. He said, I'm going to be in Toronto in a couple of weeks. So I'm not going to be in Chicago anytime. I said, I'm from Toronto, so I'll come over. So two of us sat down in the Skyline Hotel, and he drew that picture out. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what I learned. And he said, look, you've got to understand the mind. He said, the conscious mind is the thinking mind. That's the educated mind. That's where school loads the books up. And he said, that's where your intellect is resident. And you and I have intellectual factors. We've been trained and raised to live through our senses. We go by what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. But you have perception, the will, imagination, memory, intuition, memory. All these are intellectual factors. How do you think I know what these people are like? You're like, you're extremely right brain. You should never take a job behind a desk. You'll never stay there. You're all over the damn place. All right? You know, no, not true. Look at the subconscious mind is your emotional mind. That's your emotional mind. Now, you see, the conscious mind is the ability to choose. Do you know that all the other little creatures on the planet are totally are at home in their environment? They blend in. The birds blend in with the trees, the animals with the forest. You and I are totally disoriented in our environment. And that is because we've been given a godlike ability to create our own environment. And the problem is we don't do it. You know what we do? We let the environment control us. Well, we have the ability to choose. You got the ability to accept or reject. You can accept or reject anything I'm saying. You can accept or reject anything you read in the paper or see on the news. You know what our problem is? We don't reject any of it. We go locked into it. And then we have the ability to originate. Now, your subconscious mind doesn't have that ability. Your subconscious mind must accept whatever you give to it. It has absolutely no ability to reject. It just cannot reject. It must accept. And get this, it cannot differentiate between what's real and what's imagined. Carnegie gave Hill a directive, and he said, I want you to write this out. Now, this is at the end of a 3-day interview. He said, I want you to do something. And so he had him write this out. He said, now take your pen. He said, I want you to read this, or I want you to write this out, and then I want you to read it every day. Now, he said, are you ready to write? I want you to underline every word I'm saying. Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to match your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. And Hill said he threw his pencil on the floor. He says, now you know darn well I can't do that. He says, I know you can't, unless and until you plant that idea in your mind. Now he said, write it out, every word. And Hill said the first time he read it, he locked himself in the bathroom and he whispered it. He was afraid his brother might hear him. He was afraid people would think he was crazy. He said, Andrew Carnegie, I'm not only going to match your achievements in life, I'm going to meet you at the post and pass you at the grandstand. Now, Carnegie, I've read where he made 23 millionaires, 25 millionaires, 53 millionaires. He didn't make that many. Napoleon Hill has made millions of millionaires. No, Hill City, he made a commitment he'd do it for 30 days. So he said, that isn't going to hurt me. I'll do it for the 30 days. Well, he said, at first he thought he was crazy. But towards the middle of the month, he started to think maybe this isn't crazy. Maybe this will work. By the end of the month, he knew he was going to do it. That really impressed me. I made a similar one for Earl Nightingale. I've been to places where they've never heard of Earl Nightingale, but they've heard of me. Why? Because I impressed that upon my subconscious mind. I was looking for an ego trip. When I learned why I changed, all I ever wanted to do was share it with other people, and that's all I do. Now, I was 79 on my last birthday. That's the age Hill was when they made the foundation. I think I'm just warming up. I have no intentions of slowing down. Okay? Now, look. Now, just what I've given you there, I want you to keep that in mind, and let's look what happens here. We'll say, this is you today. This is you today. Information is pouring into your conscious mind. All kinds of information about the economy, about the world going to hell in a handbasket. Now, you've got the ability in your conscious mind because you have a reasoning factor. It's an inductive reasoning factor. Your subconscious mind is totally deductive. The conscious mind for the psych majors reasons inductive and deductive. Subconscious is strictly deductive. But at any rate, because you have a reasoning factor, you can think. And so if we would think and listen to what we're hearing, we'd say, that's ridiculous. And we'd reject it. Earl Nightingale said if most people said what they were thinking, they'd be speechless. The late great Dr. Yeah, well, the late and great Dr. Ken McFarland down in Kentucky, he said 2% of the people think, 3% think they think, and he said 95% would actually rather die than think. If you listen to most conversations, it's going to become evident people aren't thinking or they'd never say what they're saying. Just stand back and watch the way people behave. It's obvious they're not thinking or they'd never do what they're doing. Look at they're not only not thinking, where they could say, get out of here, I'm not listening to that. No, they leave their mind wide open, and it goes right to their subconscious mind. Why do they do that? Because they're programmed to do it. That's their paradigm. And that's the way we go around. We go around like that. Hold your hand up like that. Everybody hold their hand up like that for a moment. Put a hand in your cheek here, in your chin for a minute. Put it in your chin. What are you doing up there? You see? Okay, I screwed that up. All right. Every once in a while I make a mistake. It's rare, but I do make them. All right. Now look it. We leave our mind wide open. Why do we do that? For the same reason we speak the language we speak, like the food we eat, dress the way we dress. We're programmed to do it. Let's close the curtain on that and take a look at how we arrived on the scene. Here we are as little babies. That's as an infant. That's how we arrived on the scene. Subconscious mind is wide open. Everything that's going on around you is going right into your subconscious mind. That's why you learn the language you learn. I work in different places in the world where a little kid at 3 and 4 years old will speak 4 and 5 languages and they think nothing of it. Because the child is surrounded by people that speak 4 or 5 different languages, so they learn them. You learn to like the food you like, everything that way. And the information going on around you is being dumped right into your mind. Now the people say, oh, it's just a baby, they don't know. The subconscious mind knows, and that's how your self-image is formed. Now you have to ask yourself, what was the environment like where I was born? Robert Heinlein wrote a book, Strangers in a Strange Land. He was a science fiction writer back in the 60s. He said, in absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. This is what happens to us when we're small. That's programmed into our mind. Yet most of what people talk about is daily trivia. Well, you see, self-image is one idea. The image that's controlling your life right now, you did not build. It was built when you were an infant by people who didn't understand the mind from snowballs. They just didn't. Now, the self-image is one idea. Your paradigm is a multitude of ideas. So here we are today, living the same as we were living as a baby. Why do you think 1% of the population earns 97% of all the money that's being earned? Why do you think intelligent, really brilliant people are struggling all the way through life? Well, I'm going to show you why. That started when you're an infant. Now, this is the educational system. Our institute, Dr. Gallagher Institute, teaches this. Now, they're the sensory factors, those little antennae. You go to school and you hear what the teacher's saying. And because you hear what the teacher's saying, you gather information. Gathering information is exactly what it implies. It's gathering information. It's books being stored in the consciousness. And then at a given period of time, they come along, they're going to give you a test. They want to know if you know that information. So they give you a test, and they call that knowing. That is not knowing. Knowing is the inward experience. Gathering information is the observation of facts. Now, you don't learn from listening, from hearing, you learn from listening. You hear with your ears, you listen with your emotions. When you listen, odds are pretty good you will learn. Learning is when you consciously entertain an idea, you get emotionally involved in that idea, you step out and act on the idea, and you change the end result. That is learning. It's the feedback from the change of result that's the learning experience. Now look at this for a moment. School gave us valuable knowledge. However, school never taught us how to alter the old paradigms. Therefore, we frequently don't do what we already know how to do. When I was a little kid, the teachers would say, "Why'd you do that?" "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know? You know better." "I know." "Why'd you do it?" "I don't know." I went in the Navy. Every commanding officer, "Proctor, why'd you do that?" "I don't know, sir." "What do you mean you don't know?" "You know better." "I know." "Why'd you do it?" "I don't know." Every job I had, the boss would say, "Why are you doing it?" "I don't know." I got married. My wife saying, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Drop it right there." You know. Do you know why? We're doing things that we know we shouldn't do. It's giving us results we don't want to get, and we do them anyway. Look at superior knowledge, inferior results cause confusion and frustration. Want to change that? Read this book every day for 50 years, you'll change it. Look at, here's a graphic illustration. There's the person with all the knowledge and the consciousness. But the knowledge does not resonate with the results. There's no match between the knowledge the person has and the results they're getting. And we can't figure out why is a person so brilliant and yet gets such bad results. Well, here's why. You see, it isn't the knowledge that controls the results, it's the paradigm that controls the results. People are walking around with lots of information, but they don't know how to execute it. I've been teaching this now for 40-some years all over the world. I have seen some absolutely phenomenal, just astronomical changes take place in people's life when they start to become aware. Now look at, if you want to change the results you're getting, there's only one way you're going to do it. You got to change the results. You got to change the paradigm. And if you don't change the paradigm, you're going to keep getting the same results. Now, you can cut it any way you want. You can try to shortcut it. You can sugarcoat the pill. That's the bottom line. Okay? Now look at, here was Carnegie's basic concept. He said, any idea that is held in the mind, any idea that's held in mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, will begin at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available. Any idea that's held in the mind, any idea that's emphasized, that you keep thinking about, that's either feared or revered. Well, the great sufferer in the Bible said that, Job. He says, lo, the thing I fear has come to visit upon me. You've heard that? We don't think of what we want, we think of what we don't want. We start thinking of what we do want. Go listen to Johnny Nash's song, I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I see all obstacles in my way. Or listen to Nat King Cole on Make Believe. Listen to him on Pretend. Pretend you're happy when you're blue. It isn't very hard to do. And you'll find happiness without an end whenever you pretend. We can do that. We were given an imagination. In the worst situation, we can see something absolutely beautiful. We control that. Now, that is the bottom line. Now, you know why we're here? We're here to serve others. That is the only reason why we're here. And if you're going to serve others, you have to help them understand that. And if you're going to help them understand it, you better understand it. You can't give what you haven't got. 67 years before the life of Christ, Horace said, Nemo dat quod non habat. Freely translated, that means you cannot give what you have not got. Very few people understand that. Well, let's take a look. This is you. This represents you. Okay? There's the idea in your mind. You impress the idea upon the subconscious mind. Now, this image of what we want, this is what tells us where we are at any time. We keep checking where we're at. Where are we at? Where are we at? How many are in sales? Okay, we're always looking at the sales sheet. Where are we at? The image should tell you where you're at. That's where you're at. You don't go by the sales sheets. Now, I know you do that because we were trained to do that with our report card. The report card doesn't tell you what kind of a student the student is. The report card tells you where their mind was at maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. It's got bugger all to do with where their mind is. You see? But we don't understand that. Now, let's say this is the person you're coaching, or this is the person you're selling over here. This is the other person. I could turn this into sales or coaching or psychology. And look here. They have results. And what do? They have sensory factors. And they focus on their present results. On this side, they're focusing on the image that they're emotionally involved with. But this person is focused on their present results. And so they're being controlled by the conditions or circumstance in their life. Why are they doing that? Well, their paradigm causes them to do that. This poor soul is stuck, and they don't even know it. They try to fight existing reality. They'll say, well, look, you don't understand. Look at the... I understand. If you're going to let what's going on outside control you, that's all you're ever going to have. Kid comes home with a report card. That tells the parent what kind of student they are. It tells the teacher what kind of student they are. Ultimately, the kid thinks, well, that's the kind of student I am. So they get this kid to stay in and cram for a month, and they go to school, and they get a little bit better mark. Well, they just forced it. Their self-image hasn't been changed. Their cybernetic mechanism hasn't been changed. And in nothing flat, the kid's marked right back where they should have been. You don't have to get the kid to study. They've already got the information in their head. You got to get them to change the image of themselves. They got to see themselves as a brilliant human being, one God's highest form of creation. You got to help them understand that. But you can't help them understand it if you don't understand it. And you don't understand it if you don't study. See, the opposite of understanding is doubt and worry. On a conscious level, the opposite of doubt and worry is understanding. There's only one way to get understanding, and that's through study. There is no other way. There is no shortcut. Now, there's many forms of study. Get a hold of Dave's company, and you'll get into Dog Mandino's material. Get a hold of the foundation, you'll get into the Napoleon Hill material. Get into the program I've given you. People have paid thousands of dollars for that. You got it, it's a gift. Maybe we shouldn't have given it to you because people they get for nothing, they place little or no value on. Okay? Now, here's where you really want to watch this close. And Greg, I'm sorry I'm going over time, but I just have to share this. Okay. Look at. There's your intellect. It's your intellect and your conscious mind, and that's what you think with. But understand this. Everybody's saying you become what you think about. That's not necessarily true. Solomon gave it. He said, you become what you plant in your heart. The heart isn't the pumping here in your chest. The heart is the subjective mind, the universal mind. That's what the early Greeks referred to as the heart. That's why Solomon says, as a person thinketh in their heart, so are they. Now, that's very important we understand that. Let's also understand, planted in our heart is our old paradigm, and that old paradigm is going to produce results. We want to say, not anymore. That's going to get out of town. I am changing my ways. I am going to build the vision. I'm going to do what Carnegie says, and I'm going to emphasize it. And I'm going to keep repeating it. Now, you want to help other people. Okay? There's the other person. Now, this is a great lesson for salespeople or parents. You got to understand, your first responsibility is to find out what the other person wants. You want to motivate your kids? Find out what they want. If you don't find out what they want, you're never going to motivate them. Now, look at. You got to help them understand that's their intellectual mind. And help them understand that if they're going to get the idea, they got to place it in their subconscious. On conscious level, that's our educated mind. We communicate through words, gestures, and writing. And it's our responsibility to ask whoever we're trying to help some very provoking questions. Let's cause them to start to understand that they have the ability to think, and they don't just become what they think about, they become what they get emotionally involved with. The idea's got to be planted in their subjective mind. Now, when you ask them what they want, understand this. They're not going to tell you what they want. If anything, they're going to tell you what they think they can get, and their paradigm is controlling that. There's no inspiration in going after what you think you can get. Absolutely none. First little tough part, you're going to quit. You've got to go after what you want. Wants are of a spiritual nature. They come from the essence of who we are. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. It comes from the heart. Want. It's not to get. Wants are to grow. You should be going after something way beyond where you're at. Their paradigm, though, is controlling them. You pretty well know that. You just listen to them. And you've got to get them to think of what they want. And then you have to get them to understand that they've got to turn their want into a goal. Now, they're not going to believe this at first because the paradigm is controlling them. How do we get them to do it? We get the goal in our mind. Ray Stanford changed my life. He believed in me. I did not believe in me. He was telling me all these wonderful things I could do. I did not believe it. But you know what I did believe? The guy was so sincere and he spoke with such conviction. I believed he believed I could change. And I believed in his belief in me. And that's what happened. So when you're sitting down and talking to somebody, you better be emotionally involved in their goal. You've got to be emotionally involved in seeing them do what they're telling you they want to do. And then understand you're dealing heart to heart. So don't tell them one thing and be thinking another. You communicate heart to heart through vibration. Let me repeat that. You communicate heart to heart through vibration. There's a beautiful poem. It says, if I knew you and if you knew me, and if both of us could clearly see with an inner sight divine the meaning of your heart mind, I'm sure we'd differ less. We'd clasp our hands in friendliness, and I'm certainly presently agree if I knew you and you knew me. And you see, we've got to be emotionally involved. And when we tell them that we believe they can win, we better be emotionally involved in that. You don't want to let your old paradigm get in there and say, I don't think they're ever going to get it. You've got to understand it's heart to heart. You've got to let them know, I can see it happening for you. And you do that, and you're going to see the results that you want in their life. Now, it took me 9 years to figure this out. And I studied it every day. And I've never stopped studying it. Every person in this room has exactly the same potential. We have people join our company to teach this. We teach them to teach it, and it's all over the world. It's really great information. Now, explain, for higher goals, you have to change the old paradigm. You must. You must begin to think. You must understand there are only two ways to change a paradigm, just two. One is through the conscience-based repetition of an idea that's essentially the opposite of the paradigm, and the other is through an emotional impact. Now here I'm going to show you. Let this white line represent the sound of a CD playing or a DVD or me talking. The red line represents you listening to me talking. I will be going along and I'll say something and an idea will hit your mind and you take off on a thought trip. And you move up here onto a thought frequency. You're not listening any longer. Oh, you'll hear it, but you're not listening. You're emotionally involved with a different idea. You're on a different frequency of thought. And then you come down and you start listening again. And this goes on all the time when you're listening. You could listen to the same recording 1,000 times and only entertain that one idea once. Because you're forever going on thought trips. As I'm speaking, you went on thought trips. You went home. You thought of somebody else. You're all over the place. Now look at this for a moment. You remember all the knowledge that's stored in the consciousness? It may be all stored up there, but you got to get it down here. And stop and ask yourself this: how many times did your parents have to call you by name before you even recognized your own name? Over and over and over again. The second time you go to listen to this, what happens? Let's clear the slate. There's where you stopped in those circles. And the next time you listen, you land there. So when the same idea comes up for the second time, you're not even listening. What do you think the odds are of you listening to the same recorded message and getting the same ideas every time? It isn't going to happen. It is not going to happen. That's when I started to understand, driving around, listening to Think and Grow Rich, listening to The Strangest Secret, reading the book over and over and over. Now, when you get that, remember it's a gift. Use it. There are 12 DVDs. Watch it all to satisfy your curiosity. Watch the whole thing. And then make up your mind. You're going to listen to number one, the first one. I got to keep elastic around this or it falls apart. The pages are coming out of it. Let me take that back. You take the first one and you watch it twice a day for a week. Twice a day for a week. And there's a guide. It's a very comprehensive guide. You study the guide with the one CD or DVD. And you do that for an entire week. And then the next week, you take the second one. And you do the same with it. And you do that for 12 weeks. And then you start all over again. If you'll do that every 12 weeks for a year, I guarantee you, you will be a different human being. You'll be living in a totally different world. And I guarantee you one thing, you're going to like it a whole lot better than the one you're in. This will explain in detail why. Okay? And you want to go back and remember this. The seller is the highest paid professional in the world. I was going to apologize for taking too long, but I'm not going to apologize. I've enjoyed it.